And so
Okay.
welcome, Dr. Michael Poole. I'm so excited about what is going to unfold here for us today. It was a divine inspiration when I met you and experienced you on the whale watching, not the whale watching, excuse me, the dolphin watching excursion in Tahiti
Yes.
a couple of weeks ago. And I I noticed several things about you that intrigued me, and you may or may not know what those are.
No. Well, I'd like to hear.
Okay, great. I'll be happy to share with you. Well, could you just tell our listeners a bit about who you are and what you're up to and what your passion is, and that might lead us into where we're going.
I'm a marine biologist. My specialty is dolphins and whales. I moved to French Polynesia 37 years ago in 1987 to do research for my Ph.D. from University of California, which I did. And I stayed. It had been my life's dream to eventually end up in Tahiti, French Polynesia, doing scientific research on dolphins and whales. And I've been fortunate in that I have been able to realize my dream, make it come true. That was in 1987 when I first arrived. 5 years later, in 1992, I started French Polynesia's first dolphin and whale watching tours, eco tours. We couldn't get all the funding we needed for our research, and there was no chance of letting it go. And people had come over to the University of California lab here on Moorea and asked, "Are you Michael Poole?" "Well, yes, I am." "We heard you're doing research on dolphins and whales." "That's correct. Could we come out with you and maybe see what you're doing and learn more about the dolphins directly from you?" "Well, no, not really. That may not be conducive to my research, but we'd pay you for it." What was that last part? And that's how I started these tours back in 1992. And
Oh,
they still fund a good part of our research. And I say our research, not my research, because I have a program where I take students at the master's, PhD, and postdoc levels. They come from any university anywhere in the world, but do their research through our program. And these tours help fund their research as well. So yes, we write grant proposals, we send them out to federal governments, we send them out to NGOs, et cetera. But these tours do fund a good part of our research. And so they've been very helpful for all of us, and they have introduced thousands and thousands of people to the reality of dolphins and whales. And certainly reality is much more interesting and much more bizarre than anything fiction could make up. And so that's some of what I do.
oh, and thank you so much for all of that. That was what I didn't know either. I just knew that there was just this attraction to who you are, Michael, that
Well, thank
that created within me this I said, I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to interview you.
you.
And you were gracious enough to say yes. So here's a little bit about where I'm coming from and what I noticed about you. I'm writing a book about my passion, the passion of asking questions. And the title of the book is "The Questions You're Not Asking Are Costing You Money, Relationships, and Maybe Even Your Life."
Wow.
And so what I noticed when we were on the excursion and somebody would ask you a question, you would simply answer that question and be quiet, which is different than the way that I generally interact. I've been a self-leadership coach since 1994. And so when somebody would respond to a question I asked, or they asked me, whatever the case may be, I'd get into a dialogue. And what fascinated me about you was that the people on the boat would ask you a question and you'd respond to that. And I I just had such a curiosity about that, and whether you do that on purpose or that's just the way you operate.
In fact, what I do very often is I respond to a question with a question.
Yes.
And you might remember that. I often respond. And so my initial answer is frequently a question. And what I'm trying to do is to get people to think. And unfortunately, in our education, our society, people aren't always rewarded for thinking. And yet we need critical thinkers. We need people that can think outside of the box. And we have these minds, so let's use them. And I was in National Geographic Traveler magazine once, and the author wrote that that very thing, that Michael Poole often responds with a question, and it's very, very Socratic of him, like Socrates would answer his students' question with a question. Well, I never thought of it that way before, but it was just, this is a way to get everyone involved. And rather than just spoon feed people information, and
Yes.
let them discover something, let them think about something. And everyone experiences that joy of discovery. And so I don't always answer the question, but I frequently do. And then once that thing has been answered or discussed, I don't need to continue farther. I'm going to let them think about it. And you might also remember that then later on, I would mention something about response and answer I had given. And was there a follow-up question to that? And people would, well, yes, I've, etc. So I do try to do that so that it isn't just top-down information sharing, because I learn from the people as well. They know things I don't know. They've had experiences I haven't had. But to share the information in a way that's fun, that's informative, and to get people to think. And so sometimes we have very short answers, and sometimes it's a longer dialogue. But the idea is not just to top down, here's what I'm going to tell you, and that's it. No.
Yes. And I do a number of those things as well. I'm just totally against assumptions.
Mhm.
I can't even find the right words how totally against I am against assumptions. And so I also want people to think and to go for the truth, to go for the cause, or
Mhm.
and I imagine that many people don't have the confidence, and in the educational system may not have been encouraged and possibly even discouraged from asking questions.
Yeah.
So when somebody would ask you a question and I don't remember the question, I just remember your answer, and you responded, yes. Do you know XYZ, Michael? Yes. Oh, uh-huh.
and
Wow.
and do you remember what I followed that up with? So someone would ask, and this, I'm pretty sure it happens most tours. Do you know how many dolphins live around this island? And
Yes.
so what you just mentioned, I would say, yes, I do. And then I'll stop. Next question.
Right.
And then I often, and I don't know if I did, but I often then explain, I've tried to raise my sons so that if all you want to know is yes, no, on, off, plus or minus, black, white, then you can ask a question in such a way and you get an immediate response to just that. And that's digital. That's what digital information is. But if you want to know more than just that, phrase your question in such a way that the respondent is obliged to give you information. And so that question could be asked, Michael, how many dolphins live around this island, rather than do you know how many live around this island?
Yes,
You know,
yes.
and so and that's analog rather than digital, and so you're giving more information out in that way. And so there are times when, as you said, I gave very short answers and just straight out, but then I try to follow that up afterwards with the idea that, okay, what is the information you actually want to know, and how can you get that? And so, not just in my case, but anything of people in power. What do you want to know? What kind of questions do you want to ask them? What do you want to learn from them, etc. And so, in a way that they must give you information more than just uh, a soundbite or a tidbit or whatever it might be.
And the word that stood out for me in what you just said, Michael, was learn.
Yes.
And as I've interviewed people, and I don't know if it's prevalent in this age. I know in my age it was. We were told not to ask questions, not to be nosy, that type of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And having an intention to learn something. That's why I wanted to be with you. I loved the excursion. I mean, was just wonderful. It was wonderful. And before I went, I told a group that I'll be with again tomorrow. They're a group from Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I just have this feeling that I'm going to meet someone or learn something that is going to it's going to change some part of my experience or my life or something. And they said, well, we'll be very excited to hear about that. And and I met a lot of people while we were in, cruising around Tahiti and the various islands, and yet was the last day when I had the opportunity to meet you, and you gave me this really kind of, hello, there's a different way to think about this. And so the word learn
Yes.
really stands out for me. We can learn from each other. We're not
Absolutely.
being nosy.
And I've always said the day that I stop learning is the day I'm dead.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, is there anything else that comes to mind that you'd like to share about this, or what else you're doing? I would encourage anyone, the trip to Tahiti um, gave me so much clarity about so many things in my life. I
Mm-hmm.
came back and I'm inspired. Um, the food, for one thing, in on the ship and around, and many other things, just gave me so much clarity about how I want to continue with my life.
Yes, and I off on talking about what you experience and others. This is a very special part of our planet. It truly is. And it's not just the beauty of the islands, it's just not the beauty of the lagoons and the ocean. There's a culture here from which we can learn. The Polynesian people have been here, depending on which island group, for 1 to 2,000 years or more. And it's their home, their backyard. And their culture is still intact in many ways, whereas other peoples around the planet, indigenous peoples, their culture has been greatly affected, or more greatly affected than here. And so the language is still alive. Much of the culture is still alive. And so if people do come here, I always counsel them to don't just do a tour or a cruise expecting to see beautiful islands and beautiful water. There's beautiful people here. And I mean that in the sense of their society and their personalities. They're open, they're warm. And in general, they're very non-judgmental. They care very less about your size, your shape, your color, your ethnicity, your orientation, your religion, your vocation. They do care very much with how well do you get along with other people. And we could learn from that. And
Yes.
so if you get along with other people, then you're a-okay. And they always give you the benefit of the doubt straight off. If you don't get along with other people, they might feel sorry for you, like get a clue, you know, and so that's part of it. I've been married 34 years to a Tahitian woman. We have our 2 sons, our very first grandchild, and they accepted me from day one. It didn't matter that I had blue eyes and white skin and came from the United States or whatever. It didn't matter in the least. What mattered is that I was interested in them and their islands and their culture, and would do things with them, and didn't want to be an expat living with a bunch of expats, but wanted to integrate myself into their culture and their way of life and learn from it. And so hopefully our sons and now our grandson can take the best of both. And so far it looks like they have.
Yes, and I remember somebody mentioned that while I was on this tour about the importance of getting along with other people. I can't remember, so
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing that to my attention again as well.
Yes. Well, and it makes sense if you think about their history. They traveled huge expanses of ocean in double-hulled canoes. And so you better get along because the survival depended on them working together and getting along. And then if they discovered an island, they've got to work together to make it a life work and to survive there. And so that has been of importance throughout their history of getting along. They might sacrifice some other things for that, but certainly that has been very important to them. And whereas other cultures are much more, it's not just individualistic and group, but just the idea of getting along. Some things are maybe less important than just getting along with people.
Well, I so appreciate your time today, Michael.
Well, no problem at all. Yeah. And you might remember that on the boat, I saw how you were this incredibly positive person interacting with people around you. And when people needed some aid, you were there to help those people. They were not feeling well, etc. And you were there to help them. And I said to your granddaughter, your grandmother is the most remarkable woman. And she said back to me, yes, she is.
And I didn't even know that until, I think Jenny told me at the end of the excursion or something. And it was, the connection that we had,
Yes.
and who you are and who I am. And the work that I do is all about the who. We are intrinsically valuable, one of a kind.
Yes.
Totally irreplaceable. I've met thousands of people, and yet I have never met Michael Poole. He stands out as somebody that is just, that I will never forget. As you said to me, I won't forget you.
I won't. No, I won't.
Right. And so then we have our roles, what we do and how we make a contribution to our world.
Yes.
And this all comes from the work of Robert Hartman, who put forth the science of axiology, the science of value. And what I know about you is that you value human connection and value getting along,
Yes.
and value, your wife and your sons and the culture and all of that kind of thing. And it's just a wonderful way to live and be inspired. And so, Tahiti is a long ways away, and yet I have this desire to come back. I want to come back to Tahiti again. It was just, I had been to Israel, and I loved Hawaii. I always enjoyed going to Hawaii. And I had that same, I got totally blissed out. When I got back, I couldn't do anything practical, the practical skills. So I learned, you know, pay your bills before you go and take care of the practical things, because you'll be in this state of harmony and bliss and wonder and childlike and hugging. And there were so many because Jenny and I were on the cruise, and people began to know us as Judy and her granddaughter Jenny. And so these young guys would say grandma to me. They would adopt me as their grandma. And it was just such a wonderful, on all levels, experience that I want more of.
Well, we will be here when you come back, and we'll want to spend more time with you. And I don't mean that just on a tour. We will invite you to come to our home and spend time with you. You can meet our family, and this is just absolutely. I would like you to meet the rest of my family, and I want them to meet you.
Oh, that is just so precious. So very precious. And I have all your information, and I will send you a copy of this recording after I get it, so you can use it in any way you'd like. And it'll be up on my website. My web designer is excited to receive it, and is redoing my website. So this is just a comma in our conversation, Michael.
Yeah.
Just a comma. And I give you a big hug. And
thank you. And I kiss you on the 2 cheeks.
Okay, great. Oh, I feel them. They're wonderful. And I'll look forward to staying in touch and watching how things evolve.
Yes, and email is the best way to stay in touch, but then I also do WhatsApp on my telephone, and so you can always reach me through WhatsApp.
Yes, and that's Jenny and I have agreed that she's now my virtual assistant. We've always been close, and we discovered what fabulous travel partners we are on this cruise. And so I want her to get me set up with WhatsApp so I can call you.
I want to share something else with you, if I may. And I'm getting goosebumps right now because I forgot. But in thinking about you and Jenny, I thought about my little grandson. He'll be 2 years old in a couple of weeks. And I want to remain close to him and have him be close to me. And the idea that we could at some point in time travel together and spend time together like that, like you and Jenny did. I had thought about that I hope we have that nice, loving relationship, and he will want to be around me and spend time with me. And he can have an opinion of me like Jenny has of you, and vice versa.
Yes. And another thing that just came to mind, like I said, I just got so much clarity on so many levels. And what I got, I guess, from what you said about me to Jenny before I made the connection with you, is that who I am is inspiring.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
As opposed to many people who think they've done something wrong, or whatever the case may be, whatever their thoughts are. And that's what I want for everyone I touch, is that their presence, they know their presence is inspiring.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and enjoy the beautiful day and and tomorrow and all that. And we'll be in touch again soon, Michael.
Thank you very much. It's good talking with you.
Good.
Bye.
Bye for now.